We are going over a human design chart here. I happen to have done this chart before with this specific person live. This person is InkBytes, and I actually realized that because I was a little bit distracted doing this reading, I gave a little bit of improper information. Um, Now, the reason why I'm redoing this is because the one that I wanted to edit, it was this bad quality, and it was just because there was improper information that I wanted to redo this. So let's run over um, what it is to experience a human design, you know, basic overview. What I want to remind you is that this is not a foundational analysis. What does that even matter? Is that the foundational analysis truly goes into personality traits and environments and etc. Um, what are some of the things that could have been incorrect that we were running over? And it's only because you gave me no time of birth, and it was more of a guess. So, some of the things that could be incorrect is your type. There's a chance that you're a manifesting generator, depending if you're born in the morning versus the evening. Which leads me to the definition here. Not that we're supposed to understand what this means on a logical level if we're just beginning, but the triple split definition may actually change if you're born in the morning versus the evening. Why does this matter? It matters because it tells us about where you might feel the most pressure inside your chart. I was telling you the other day that you would feel them inside these tiny little spots here in the chart. But if you're born in the morning versus the night, it would change that actually. And same with your profile. If you're born in the morning versus the night, this completely changes, and your purpose completely changes. So, what I was only supposed to do was give you the basic analysis of how you say your yes and no, but I got super excited that you actually were interested because you were asking questions that were very relevant, and I just I couldn't stop myself, I guess. Um, so let's run over what's most important here about understanding what human design is. A human design experience, the way we're doing it today, is that we are introducing a person into human design. That's it. We are introducing them to human design and getting grounded into the chart, and we are then um, going to let this person understand how they say their yes and no, because that's all really that's important in the human design system at this point, is just truly understanding how a person correctly makes decisions for themselves. All right, let's run over what the generic idea of human design is. Human design is a person's energetic blueprints. Whenever we get something, we typically get a user manual of some sort because we want to know how to use it. And that's the same with our body. We have this user manual sitting up right here in front of us, guiding us through our purpose. Another way to explain human design is that we are born and we are born into a sex, a race, possibly a religion, a culture, society, etc. And there's expectations of those particular conditions, like girl equals pink, boy equals blue, etc. So there are different things that society expects us to be based on specific conditions, and our little baby selves decide to change ourselves and try to meet our authoritative figures' expectations or society's expectations. So what I'm saying is that we're born into, life, and life expects us to be something different. When we go to school, our authoritative figures or teachers expect us to be sitting down in quiet little human beings as we get educated. Um, then we leave the nest and we're like, oh, well, we're free. We're finally free. But are we though? We have the TOS of life. We have to abide by rules. And we are still conditioned at that point. We have bosses, we have customers, and they expect us to act a certain way. So we do. We change ourselves a little. And human design is just bringing us back to who we are when we are born. Human design is, us when we're born and who we are when we leave this world. There's also different situations where trauma happens and we have to create coping mechanisms, or there are other examples where we see someone doing something nice and shiny and frilly, and we're like, oh, well, I want to do that because I want to be successful like them. So we change ourselves so we be like the other person, so we can try to, accumulate some of their success. But remember, true success for you is by using your proper yes and no, because then that allows you to make correct decisions for you. This particular experience that we have here is based on a one-part experience because we don't have an exact time of birth. The more than surface level information could be incorrect. So because we don't have the exact time of birth, the deeper information that we could know could be very incorrect because we don't have the exact time of birth. I know I've said it many different ways and repeat it myself, but it's very important that we have your exact time of birth so we can understand the deeper information. Because we'll 100% not resonate with it at all. So this part one experience is based on understanding how this person says their correct yes and no. And we're going to run over that in a very deep way. There's not going to be any brain candy here because, like I said before, there isn't an exact time of birth. It just happened to be that we were lucky to be able to do a surface level reading based on having no exact time of birth. Everything doesn't change in such a crazy way that we weren't able to, we were able to put something together, but nothing on a deep level. Let's just say a person was born on Black Friday in 2020. The energy actually changed 4 different times in one day in a very extreme way. So if a person was born on that day and they didn't know what time of day they were born, you wouldn't be able to just guess. You would have to go to your records or get a birth rectification done, which is an Ayurvedic experience, which I don't do. All right. The most important piece of information is starting right now. This is the most important piece of information that Inky needs to hear about human design. Inky is a generator. 70% of the world are generators. And just like in the astrology section, in astrology we hear words like Gemini, Capricorn, etc. I don't know anything about astrology, but for an untrained person like myself, Capricorn, Gemini, to me they're just generic terms. They kind of mean something, but to a person who's very trained, they mean a lot of things. But millions and millions of people use them just to have this generic term to assign them to a particular category. And that's what we're doing here in the human design system. If you're going to assign yourself in the human design system, your type is who you are. And you're a generator. You're not supposed to understand what it means at a very deep level for the untrained eye. But for an analyst, there's a lot of things that means. But you just need to hear it. You're a generator. All right. Regarding understanding your yes and no. Your yes and no can be understood as your strategy and authority. Your or your your response mechanism, your choice mechanism, how you properly make decisions in life for you. It doesn't matter if we're talking to Inky, it doesn't matter if we're talking to someone in rerun or in chat. If we're talking about how a person says their proper yes and no, this is where you find it, your strategy and authority. And everybody's different. Even though we say 70% of the population is a generator, how a person says yes and no is very unique to them and how they function. So because you're a generator, this beautiful little square here, this red square, that's where all of this fun little stuff comes from. This response mechanism comes from your sacral. I know it's jargon, but I just want to show you. We are understanding how to say your yes and no. What's the purpose of understanding your yes and no? If you understand your yes and no, and you act on that yes or no, then you're allowing your purpose to flow through you. Your purpose is your incarnation cross. As I said, this probably will change because I didn't have your exact time of birth. But let me repeat that. If you allow yourself to have your choice mechanism flow through you and you follow it, then you are allowing your purpose to flow through you. You don't have to get your brain involved. It is this response moment by moment that's going to allow your purpose to flow through you. We'll get into that in a bit about the mind. So if you follow your choice mechanism, or if you follow your strategy and authority, then you allow your purpose to flow through you. But what if you do the opposite? What if your body spits out an answer and you're like, I'm going to do the opposite. My body said no, but I'm too excited. I'm going to do it anyway. Or, your body said yes, and the same answer. You're afraid, or you feel like you may not have the material or resources to participate. So you decide to say no. That's the opposite. So what if you decide to say the opposite? Then you have a chance of doing the opposite of, flowing into your purpose, which is, not flowing into your purpose. You'll actually find yourself down here flowing into possible frustration. So we're going to hit on that afterwards, but I just think it's pretty cool that, if you follow your proper choice mechanism for you, then you allow your purpose to flow through you. But if you do the opposite, if you don't follow your choice mechanism when it spits itself out at you, and you do the opposite, and you could find yourself in frustration. So let's understand what a choice mechanism is for this particular person. Inky, what is it to respond? Well, there's two different ways for me to explain this to you. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it actually sounds like to have a response, and let's talk about what it is that you can respond to. So your gut, you were gifted these guttural caveman sounds like uh-huh and uh-uh, or uh. Or if you don't know as well, maybe you're going to say a word like maybe a guttural sound can sound like what a baby sounds like. When a baby likes something, they're like, ooh. When a baby doesn't like something, they're kind of like, eh. Or they just cry. So those are truly the sounds that you're looking for. Now what's interesting is that 70% of the population have this beautiful gift of hearing those guttural sounds, uh-huh, uh-uh, or oh. And if the answer is oh, then you just don't know, and that's okay. And maybe right now it's just not the time to ask yourself that question. And maybe in 5 minutes you will have an answer. It might be uh-uh. I feel like I went on a tangent there and I lost my actual thought. This 70% of population that we're talking about that say uh-huh and uh-uh, well, I know for a fact that my parents pretty much deconditioned that sound out of me, slapping me on the hand, give me little pinches here and there, because I used to say yeah, nah, because they're proper for me. But my parents, society, they want me to correctly say yes and no. And I lost touch with that gut because somebody else wanted me to move away from those sounds. So what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of people are deconditioned away from their natural gut instinct. So when a person doesn't really understand how to feel that guttural sound or hear that guttural sound that they've been gifted with, an exercise to do is to retrain ourselves, is to get people to ask you questions that you either love or hate. So, do you like pizza? Is an example we used. Do you like babies? That would be for me. Do you enjoy riding horses? Do you enjoy eating potato chips? Do you want to try skydiving? These are typical, people typically understand the answers to these through their gut. They typically have a connection with those kind of answers. So let's review. That is what a guttural response sounds like. Oh. Or if you don't know, or got those baby type sounds like ooh or ah. And when they don't like something, pushing it away. For some reason, I have my friend popping into my head at this particular moment. Whenever she responds in the moment to something funny, she literally cackles. It's like she receives it and she's like, and then she starts laughing her ass off. And that's totally a response. It's great. Now I said that there was two parts of understanding what a response was. So we ran over what and was. Let's kind of tie it in. What does an and get ya? What if you follow it? If you follow your and so if your body says and you decide to follow it, you do the thing. So your strategy and authority said do the thing, and you decide to do the thing, then you are going to allow your purpose to flow through you. Let's just say your body said and you decided to not do the thing. Well, even though you decided to not do the thing, you are going to allow your purpose to flow through you. We also talked about this response about, let's just say something cued you, and you're like, you don't need to give an answer in that particular moment. The answer is that you need more time. Maybe the person who asked you the question asked you the incorrect way. Maybe they just need to ask you again. Maybe if you have the response maybe you can just flat out say, can you ask me that question again, but a different way? Just to see if your response might be different. And if it isn't, just say, you can just ask me again, maybe tomorrow. See how I feel then. Maybe in 2 weeks, see how I feel then. Depends on what comes to mind. Let's just say that once again, your body threw out a response and it was but you were scared and you decided to not do the thing. That means that you're stepping away from your purpose flowing through you, and you're possibly going to step into a theme of frustration instead. Once again, we'll go over this. We're still working on it, building on it, one idea at a time. So as a generator, you're here to say and But how do you get to the point of having something to respond to? Well, let's run over that. This is the second part of understanding your response. Understanding your response. What is the response? Where does it come from? Well, it's not a question that we ask ourselves, so it's not like, hi self, asking myself a question in the head. Do I want to do the thing? And then seeing if my body has a response to it. That's not the correct way to move through this energy, no. It's about environmental cues externally. So it could be a person, place, thing, or experience cueing you. Yeah, sounds awesome. I want to do that. So let's run over that experience of what an external cue is. An external cue could literally be someone saying, hey, Inky, do you want to do the thing? Do you like the thing? Etc. Another example of an external cue is my cats are on the window and I stupidly have a flower pot on the window. They knock it over. And my response is, well, a lot of people's response would be to yell at their cat for knocking over the flower pot, but it's truly my fault for stupidly putting a flower pot on the place they obviously would enjoy sitting. But yeah, my response would be to start, let's nag at the cat for breaking something that really didn't even make sense to them to start with. But yeah, a response would be like, ooh, I jumped. And then a response would be, oh, I looked over to see what actually happened. A response would be to get up. A response would be to go over. Someone would start yelling at the cat. I wouldn't personally, for breaking the thing. And then another response would be to either leave it there, move on to the next task, or clean it up. So I wouldn't want to step in glass or dirt all day from a flower pot on the ground. Maybe the flower's still salvageable, so I respond to firstly salvaging the plant. So I respond to grabbing another potter. I respond to grabbing the bag of dirt. I respond to start smashing it into the dirt, and then I respond to watering it properly a little, putting it somewhere safe, and then I respond to cleaning up what's on the ground, and then I move on. So as you see, it's moment by moment. Like, I could have responded to clean it up first, but I responded that, there's a little bit of life in this plant. It wasn't completely shredded by the cats, so I'm going to deal with this first. So we did respond moment by moment what I was going to do in that particular experience. So although it wasn't a person, it was an experience that cued me to do something. Person, place, thing, or experience. So place, you might be standing outside of Disney World and you're like, that should be a clear indication that today's not a good day, or at this particular moment, it's not a good time to enter Disneyland or Disney World. Maybe in 10 minutes it'll be better, but at that particular moment, you're standing in front of Disneyland and you just look at it and you're like, ugh. And I'm sure that you resonate with that a little bit, seeing something, a place, a person, a thing, and you're just like, ugh. You can hear it inside of you. And then an experience. You responded, well, I think I want to make a little... No, sorry. Let me start that sentence over again. You were thinking about making more cash. When we first started this experience, I told you that asking yourself a question and acting on it isn't really the way that we do things here. So you were thinking about ways that you could make extra cash. So we would start by saying, firstly, it's okay that you were thinking about stuff and ways to make cash. And of course, some of the first things that popped into the head were some of the nice money grabbing ones that you had explained in your chat. Now, it was frilly, it was shiny. Yeah, I think that I want to do this. But you were thinking about it, you were internalizing it, and you're like, yeah. But remember, I told you that that's not the way to do things. It was actually when you started talking, somebody else on a panel of people, one of the people started talking about the exact experience that you wanted, and you guys started talking about it. And long story short, at the end of the conversation, letting it sink into you after you've externalized it, you heard them talk about it, you experienced like some type of external cue to see what it sounded like, see what it felt like, see what you responded to. And you had more time to sit on it, see if your energy wanted to do it, I guess, see if you responded to it. And at the end of the day, it still sounds frilly and fun. But the final decision was, it's actually not what I want to do. I know where I want to be, but that's not the decision that's going to make me get to, it's not the decision that's going to get me there. So I think it's beautiful that it seems like you're already using your energy correctly. The internal question to yourself isn't what made you make the decision. It was actually you responded externally to something. And I'm sure you're glad that you heard it and had that conversation and talked it out, and because it gave you something to respond to really understand what you really wanted in that situation. And so the thinking continues. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. So maybe, from my personal experience, I'm a generator, so I respond. My personal experience of going through it may not be the same for you. I just got to try it. I just got to trial and error it. I just got to see if it works for me or not. So I typically jump into it, and I can usually tell if it feels like a band-aid ripping off or if I actually enjoy it when I jump into it. But that's me. There could be an internal cue. It could be your bladder is pressurizing you and you respond that I gotta go use the washroom. There's an internal cue of, oh, I'm a little bit tired. I'm going to go lay down. There's an internal cue of your tummy rumbling. Oh, I'm going to go eat. That's what we're talking about. So everything else is pretty much external. We were talking about how if you follow your and your then you're going to allow your purpose to flow through you. But if you decide to do the opposite of your and then you have the chance of stepping into frustration. Let's explain that to you a little bit more. Just because you could enter into a contract correctly, like and you decide to flow into it and you do it, maybe you're going to end up in frustration sometime at some point. How or why? Maybe the contract is ended and frustration is a key indicator that something needs to change. And yeah, it brings me to my second point, is that maybe the frustration is just telling you that something needs to change. Like I just previously said, the contract had ended, or maybe just something needs to change. Just because you're in frustration, it doesn't mean you need to stop or start something. It just is. So frustration is just a key indicator of you needing to see that there's something to respond to, because frustration is showing you that you're a little bit off your trajectory. Let's get back on that that flow into the purpose. And I have other different internal cues like a bladder pressure, a hungry stomach, etc. We're not going to be talking about a definition, profile, or even your incarnation cross because we don't have your exact time of birth. And even if we did have your exact time of birth, you wouldn't even resonate with this information here anyways. Because a person is usually so far away from their true self, including myself, that we usually don't understand or recognize the actual definition of what these mean. So if I were to explain it to you, even if I did have your exact time of birth, they wouldn't resonate with you. Why? Because you're just maybe a few decisions away from being your true self, and maybe at that point you would recognize them a little bit better. So for years and years and years, I actually didn't recognize my profile or my incarnation cross, or also known as my costume in this stage of life, or my purpose in life. I didn't recognize it. When I read it, I was like, that's not me. It's not who I am. So long story short, I just lived moment by moment. And oh. And it allowed my purpose to flow through me, which then eventually got me on the correct trajectory. So this is our overview. This is an experience when a person doesn't have their proper time of birth. There's usually a 50-50 chance that we can actually do it. There's only been one time out of like the 100 of charts that I've done without their time of birth where we could actually go deeper. Very rare, but it's a half-half that we could actually do it. And then there was only one time where we could actually go deeper. So it's usually if you don't have your exact time of birth, we are going to be staying on the very surface level. And this is pretty much where we stop if a person doesn't have their time of birth. But I mean, this is all a person needs to know anyways. This is all I chose to know as an analyst. And just because I'm becoming a professional, that's why I have to know the definition of this stuff. But I choose to kind of be ignorant and ignore the what the definitions are, because I just want to flow through my purpose instead of get my brain candy involved. Maybe if I knew what my incarnation cross was, like the definition was, maybe my brain would try to get involved and be like, yo, you're on the cross service. You're supposed to service people. You should do that because, it's part of your purpose. No, I don't want anything to do with knowing what any of this stuff below what my strategy and authority says. I don't want it. Because what's the point? Just live your life. Nothing else matters within this chart. It's just really shiny, cute little stuff that we can know about ourselves. So, this is all the information I can truly give you accurately. Everything else that I had said has a very large chance of being inaccurate. So, what I'm talking about here, folks, is that I did a review of Inky live on her channel with her chat flowing, and I just got a little bit caught up in the flow, and I just forgot that we didn't have the proper information, so I was possibly spitting out incorrect information. And that's okay. We make errors. I'm human. It is what it is. This is Inky's experience of understanding their yes and no. I hope you enjoyed.